Hello, I'm Graham Henstock. I'm NIDA's Director for the Centre for Technology, Production and Management, and I'm also the head of NIDA's Bachelor of Fine Arts, Technical Theatre and Stage Management degree. I want to start by acknowledging that I speak to you from the land of the Gadigal people of the Aurora Nation, and that NIDA sits on the traditional land of the Bidjigal and Gadigal people. I want to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The purpose of this talk today is to introduce you to NIDA's Bachelor of Fine Arts Technical Theatre and Stage Management course. Before I do that, I just want to say a few words about NIDA. NIDA is what's known as a conservatoire, which means that we're a specialist institution that focuses on the training of practicing artists. What we offer is we're still degrees. We're still giving university level degrees, both at an undergraduate and a postgraduate level, as well as we also have some vocational offerings. But the real focus of what we do is focused on training artists who are going to go and work as artists. So whilst we learn the theory, we are also very practice-based. We get in amongst it and the students learn their craft through their time at NIDA. To tell you a little bit about the Technical Theatre and Stage Management course, it's a 3-year undergraduate degree that is focused on training sort of artists who can work behind the scenes in theatre in all the different aspects that go back there. So we're producing people who are working in lighting, in stage management, sound, production management and more. The course structure is such that our students are with us every day from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m, learning a whole range of materials. And each of those, and that methodology follows right through the 3 years of the course, although the third year is a little bit different. And we also then increase those hours when people are working on productions. So when we come together as a school to do large-scale productions, the students emulate what happens in the industry, which means that they will work from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m, sometimes for 6 days in a row. What this means is that it's a very immersive and intense course, but also, as I hope to show you through this presentation, it's a very satisfying and effective course that leads to good employment outcomes. So how do we define the course? The first thing to understand is that the course is primarily theatre orientated. So we focus on theatre and live events. We're talking about those processes, how you put on shows in those environments. We also focus about how performance and technology sort of come together, like those moments where sort of you have a performer on stage, but there's a whole range of technologies, including the stage itself, but everything else that goes around it, that are there to support that performer and work with that performer to create those magical moments we expect to see on stage. This particular degree is broad-based rather than specialist. It's specialist in terms of the fact that it focuses on technical theatre and stage management, but we cover a wide range of disciplines. There are other institutions and courses out there that specialise in lighting or stage management or sound, and you go to those courses and you spend 3 years just focusing on a single discipline. This course, however, does something a little bit different. What we do is we try to train cross-discipline practitioners, people who are aware of all of those different areas, and so therefore can bring them together in sort of one event, or can bring them together and sort of understand what everybody else is doing within that environment behind the scenes. This means that we're creating technical designers, technical coordinators, production managers and event managers. But it also doesn't prohibit the fact that students may leave our course and go and pursue a particular passion in one discipline. So they may leave the course and go and become a lighting designer, a sound designer, a stage manager. It's just that when they do those things, they come with a much broader base to their training. To give you a bit more about how this course is structured. In the first year, students are learning stage management, lighting, sound, technical drawing, script analysis, conflict resolution, safety, first aid, electrical testing and tagging, performance and ideas, which is a subject about the way that performance throughout history has responded to philosophical movements, to political movements. It's basically looking at performance history and then sort of framing it within the context of those eras. Students also learn about video design. They also learn about how to collaborate with each other through a particular subject in terms called Introduction to Collaboration. At the centre of NIDA's model of teaching, though, is productions. As I said before, we are training practicing artists, which means that to practice, we need to produce work. So 3 times a year, all of the students from all of the undergraduate courses come together to produce 3 large-scale production seasons. And the technical theatre and stage management students are working on those productions, doing roles such as stage management, lighting designer, head electrician, sound designer, video designer, and so on. In the first year, the students are doing assistant stage management roles and also technical crewing roles, and everybody gets a chance at both types of roles during the course of the year. Many of those sort of topics stay for the second year of the degree. Students are still learning about stage management. They're still learning about lighting design, sound design, video design. They're still learning technical drawing using both AutoCAD and Vectorworks. But we start to bring in a few other things into the course at this point. They start to learn about production management. They start to learn a bit more about sort of the business of being an artist. They learn a bit more about sort of how to write grants and apply for funding if you need it as a practicing artist. We also do a magic show in the second year. It's a particular highlight of the year where students come together with a guest magician and they produce half an hour of illusions on stage. Magic really is the epitome of all of those skills that they learn because it requires everything to work in unison. The staging needs to work, the lighting needs to work, the sound needs to work all at once to create the illusion of magic on stage. So it's a really great project for students. We also have the productions in second year, as they are in all years. And the productions in the second year, students are taking on what we would call deputy stage management roles, which means that they are in the rehearsal room, working with a director, working with a cast, and then calling the show during the performance. The other role they take on is a sort of technical systems manager role. So either in lighting, sound, or video, and they sort of get to nominate a little bit where they'd like to be. Students take on a role where they can then focus on the system and how that complex system comes together within the live performance environment. The third year for the course is very different. In the third year, there are very few formal classes. That's because our students go out on industry placements. Students do a minimum of 10 weeks where they are out on placements with major performing arts companies or practitioners. I say a minimum of 10 weeks. So that's because we have to have a minimum for assessment purposes. But students are open to do more placements if they want to. And in fact, many students will do 20 weeks. Some really keen students will do even more than that. And it's about an opportunity to go and work with leading practitioners, work in leading environments, and actually get a sense of how those companies and people work. It's also a foot in the door to industry. It means that by going and having those experiences, the students get to get a sense of the companies they might like to work for, but also get to have an experience where those companies get to know them. It's not uncommon that people's first employment or first job in the industry comes directly out of the industry placement they do in their final year. In their final year as well, students do a major research project. This is an opportunity for each student to pick a topic or an area that is of particular interest to them, and then they do a bit of a deep dive into it. They get to sort of really look into the ins and outs of that topic over the course of the year. I say it's a year. It's meant to be about 7 to 8 weeks worth of work, which is interspersed amongst the industry placements because each student will have a different format or a different footprint for when they're doing industry placements. We kind of work the major research project around the other commitments the students have in the year. But it's a really great opportunity. It sort of keeps things academic a little bit in the third year, but it also means that students really sort of get to embrace an area of interest for them. Also in the third year, production work continues, but by that year they are doing senior roles. So they are either being a lighting, sound or video designer for some productions, or they're also being a senior management person. So either a production manager or a project manager or an event manager. Students have to do both types of roles, but by the third year, we are very much responding to the sort of interests of students and where they might like to go. So in that sort of environment, what we do is we sort of let them dictate a little bit about the sort of experiences they want to have in their final year. And then through the research project, through the industry placements, and then through the production work, the student really starts to define themselves as an artist and make sure that their experiences match where they see themselves going once they graduate. Once we talk about graduation, we need to talk about graduation outcomes. So where do you end up once you do a course like this? Well, the first thing is you end up with particular sort of skills, and we sort of say these things about our graduates, that the TTSM graduates, or the Technical Theatre and Stage Management graduates, have a breadth of perspective because of all of those different topics they have to engage with during the course. This gives them an ability to communicate with practitioners from a whole range of backgrounds and fields. They're not stuck in a particular discipline, they can communicate to everybody. They often become the centre point in a production in which they sort of translate between what the designer might be saying to the technician and vice versa, or what the director might be saying to the technical team, and so on. This is reflective of the proficiency they have across multiple disciplines. Key as well is the fact that because this is a practice-based institution, they are able to apply their education and those skills in real-world situations. This is not a theoretical degree. It is a practice-based degree, which means that students are taking those skills and are able to apply them. We also say about our graduates that they leave us as collaborators, not facilitators. They are part of the artistic process, and whilst what they might be bringing to that artistic endeavour may be management skills or technical skills, they are there as equals. They are collaborators within the artistic process of making theatre or live performance. They're also self-reflective practitioners. We are training them to think about their practice and constantly improve. That means after they do anything, they look back at it and they go, okay, what can I do to improve that process next time? So even in their careers, they are constantly improving themselves and their craft. They are creative and independent problem solvers, which means that they are able to tackle complex problems and find ways to break them down into smaller problems that can easily be solved using creative solutions. Due to the breadth of the training, they can work both conceptually and practically. They understand the concept of why they are doing the work, but then they are able to practically do that work. They leave with those practical skills. And finally, we hope that our students embrace challenge, change, and complexity. They're not afraid of complex tasks. Through the experiences they have at NIDA, they learn to tackle big, complex things and make magic on stage. And as a result, they are then able to take any sort of idea that is thrown at them and find a way to try to realise that. So, in terms of employment, where are they actually ending up? We do a survey each year where we have a look and see where our graduates are. And I have to be upfront and say that this data is pre the COVID-19 sort of pandemic that's hit us. So some of this data is a little bit out of date, although we expect that these trends will continue once the industry reopens up. Based on the data that we took at the start of the year, for students who were 3 years out from graduation, there were 13 graduates in that year, and all 13 were employed in the industry. Now, I don't say employed full-time. What I would say is they are employed consistently in the industry. It means that they are making their living off the type of work that they've been trained to do. That's because theatre and live events are a gig economy. People go from project to project. So they might be doing 6 weeks on a show, 10 weeks on a show, or even a year on a show, but then they're moving to another contract. So they're not sitting in permanent employment, they're sitting in contract employment, but they are getting consistent employment and are living off that employment. So 13 of 13 graduates 3 years out are employed in the industry and making their living off the industry. They're working in stage management for people like MTC, Belvoir, Griffin Theatre Company and commercial musicals. Some of them are working in production management, the Sydney Opera House, Sydney Festival, Adelaide Festival and Sydney's New Year's Eve. And others are working as lighting and sound technicians for places like Belvoir and the Sydney Opera House. Now that's a pretty impressive statistic for 3 years out. The very idea that 13 people who graduate have all found work and are making their living off the industry is a pretty good statistic. What is actually interesting though is when we go further out, we see similar trends. If we go 8 years out, of the 12 graduates from that year, there are 9 who are still employed and working in the industry. One is a rigger working for Cirque du Soleil, 2 are stage managers for commercial musicals, there's a company manager for a state theatre company, one runs a major events company that they set up themselves, and we have 2 award-winning lighting designers from that year, an award-winning sound designer, and a freelance technical manager who moves from contract to contract on quite large work. So 8 years out, 9 out of 12 are still working in the industry. When we go further though, if we go 20 years out from this course, and I find this astounding, From that year, there were 15 graduates, and 12 of them are still working in the industry. Working in roles such as an event manager for the City of London, the technical director of the Melbourne Comedy Festival, a company manager for a Broadway musical. There's a freelance lighting designer who works in London and New York. There's a managing director of a major events company. There's an architectural lighting designer, and there's someone who's working in film and TV as a line producer. That sort of idea that 20 years out, that 12 people of 15 who graduated are still working in the industry they've trained for, speaks to the fact that what this course is actually doing is training practitioners who have a passion for their craft, but also have the ability to have a sustainable career. In an area such as the arts, where we constantly hear about how careers are unstable, the employment for people coming out of this course is very stable. People make reasonably good livings. They make consistent livings in a craft that they enjoy. So people do it for the love, but they actually end up with lifelong careers as a result of this course. Going back in terms of the course, so what actually happens in the building. This is an image from the magic show that I mentioned before. One of the students with a magic effect. And with our visiting magician for that year, Adam Marder. The student experience is intense, and I'll be upfront about that. Our students are on site with us from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. on 5 days a week, and those hours extend when we're in production mode. That's because of the fact that what we're doing, as I said, is training practicing artists. The analogy that I like to use is that if you're training to become the first violin at the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, no one thinks that you get to do that by doing half an hour's of practice a day. Everyone understands that it's a much deeper regime of practice to get to that level of expertise and proficiency. While someone like that might go to the Conservatorium of Music, NIDA is training the same level of practitioner, but for the theatre and live events industry. And so therefore it requires that practice, it requires that commitment, and it requires those sort of hours. So we don't shy away from that. So it is an intense experience. We talk about the fact that students sort of check their lives at the door, and that 3 years later they leave with a degree and a really excellent prospect for employment in the industry that they feel passionate about. But despite that intensity, NIDA is very much a community atmosphere. We have a small cohort. We take approximately 14 students per year into the course. That means that every student gets to know each other very well. They spend a lot of time together. They end up forging very strong friendships. But in a teaching environment, it also means that we get to know each student individually. We're not dealing with lecture halls with 200 people in a lecture hall. Instead, what we're dealing with is a small classroom of around 14 students. That means that we get to know those students. We get to know how they learn. We get to know where their specific interests are and where they're going to as an artist. As a result, we can very much tailor the experiences they have at NIDA to make sure that they still learn everything that they need to learn, but it can be delivered in ways that are sympathetic to the way that they learn, but also to what their interests are and where they see their path as an artist leading. So having heard all that, if you want to come to the course, there is an application process. Applications go live on July 6th, but the process, once you see that application on our website, is that every student has to prepare a small project. And what I mean by that is that there is a list of 10 or so different plays, and you pick one of them, just one, and then you show us how you might stage that production. Now, how you show us is a little bit up to you. Some people will create physical models of how they would stage the production. Some people will use storyboards. Some people will use a digital model that they create using software. Some people will just use plans and description. Some people will use reference images and sort of mood boards and things like that to try to explain how they're going to do a production. All of those things are completely okay. What we're asking to see is how you think about theatre. And so by getting you to read a script and then show us that you understand that script and that you can see what the creative challenges are within that script is a real benefit for us. Equally, once you have a look at a script, there will be challenges. There'll be things like a show may happen in multiple locations. There might be changes of days. There may be special effects. So part of what we want to see is how you would solve those problems. We're not looking for the best model or the best design because our students are kind of learning about the theatre making process. What we want to do is see the thinking behind the work and see that you're able to bring creativity to the work, but also that you've got the dedication to sort of be able to put a project together for us that we can sort of then talk about. Once you've done that project, we will have about a 45-minute interview with every single applicant. During that time, you will show us your project. We'll talk about it. We'll ask a few questions about sort of why you made the choices that you did. The second part of the interview will be around why you want to come to NIDA, where you hope to go as a practitioner, as an artist, and why this is the right choice for you at this time. Whilst there's a fair bit of work involved in the application project, the interview is not designed to be intimidating or scary. It is very casual. It's just an opportunity for us to know you and for you to show us the best version of you and explain why you want to come and join us at NIDA. If you do want to apply, applications will become available on our website on the 6th of July. There are some things that you need to prepare. All of that information will be available on the website when you do the application process. It is important to know that we do not look at the ATAR for students. Instead, we do everything via the projects that I've outlined and via an interview. There's also some information here about the sort of cost of NIDA's courses. This information is also going to be copied on our website. You'll be able to find all of this information there. The good news is that our students are eligible for all the sort of supports that university students would receive in other institutions. So that means things like fee help is available for students. Also, eligible students can receive support from places like Centrelink and that sort of thing while they're studying with NIDA. That covers everything that I was going to explain to you today about the Technical Theatre and Stage Management course. The students who come to this course, as I said, they have good employment outcomes, but they also have a lot of fun. It's a real pleasure to work with them and sort of see them leave us and then go out and become successful in their careers and in the industry. They leave and they become leaders in the industry in many instances. It's very satisfying for me to see that. I hope that somebody who's watching this will take the plunge and come and join us next year, and that we'll be able to have that journey together. I look forward to meeting you all, and I hope to see you in the upcoming sessions where we can answer your questions and you can meet some of our alumni on the alumni panel. Thank you very much for your time today. I look forward to meeting some of you soon. Bye.